Hello, welcome everyone to May Lunch and Learn. We have a couple minutes left, so we're going to wait a couple more minutes before we get started. But I want to thank everyone for joining us today. All right, 12 o'clock on the dot, everyone. I'm Devonta Roche with Sentencing Guidelines. I work along with Linda McBrayer. She is the trainer this afternoon. Today we're going over enhanced offenses. And this is going to be an open Q&A style afterwards. So please save your questions for later, and then we can definitely go over those. Today, our presentation is only 4 slides. It is not that long. I did share the presentation in the link, in the meeting link, if you're able to find that. If not, you can shoot us an email. You can shoot me a personal email, or you can shoot us an email at sentencing.guidelines@state.mn.us. And I'll also share that in the chat too, if everybody didn't catch that. Again, I'll share our email in the chat, so you can email us if you want a copy of that presentation. Again, it's going to be a short one, and then we have the open Q&A afterwards, so please save your questions. But I want to thank everyone for returning for the May Lunch and Learn and joining us today. And the wonderful, glorious Linda, the guru of sentencing guidelines, is here today. And we're about to learn a lot, everyone. And let's have a good one.
Well, thank you, Devonta, for that amazing introduction. And I just want to take a minute to say welcome, everyone, to the last Lunch and Learn of this guidelines year, if you will. We're going to meet again in August, and my goodness, are we going to have a lot of things to talk about. A lot of things are changing. But as we know, guidelines are in effect based on the date of the current offense. So we're not going to lose anything that we have currently in place. We're just going to be adding to our knowledge in August. And I want to take a minute and say that I could not have done these without Devonta. For those of you that have been around long enough that I've tried to do them a couple of times, maybe I got one of them done before I just couldn't do it. Devonta is, he is my right hand, and I can't do anything without him. And I want everyone to just give him a round of applause. And we're going to start this. Okay. Today's Lunch and Learn is going to be a little bit like we did last month, where we talked about out-of-state offenses. Thank you for doing that. So enhanced offenses, there are only 2 kind of enhanced offenses that we run into. And so we're just going to jump straight in to what those policies are. Enhanced offense number 1 is going to be felony DWI. And this has a special rule connected to it. So I like to start with this so we can sort of understand what the rule is and what is it about DWIs that make them different from any other enhanced offense. But if you're not super familiar with the concept of an enhanced offense, this is misdemeanor level behavior that the defendant has committed, but they have done it enough times to get them now up to a felony level offense. So for DWIs, it's going to be their 3rd driving incident in 10 years is going to get them up to that felony level. And the interesting thing about DWIs is that it can include both prior criminal and prior civil offenses, like driving after cancellation, that can be used to enhance. But the thing that is so important about enhanced offenses, regardless of what type it is that it is the responsibility of the charging authority or the prosecutor to determine how they're going to charge it and getting it up to that felony level. That is not the responsibility of the guidelines, and so not the responsibility of probation. With so many of these policies, I just had a long conversation with a prosecutor this morning, and my takeaway from that conversation is so much has to be decided before the guidelines policies step in and say, okay, now that we know the guise under which this is going to be sentenced, now we can know which policies to apply. So the idea here is that it is up to the prosecutor to determine what is going to enhance it to this felony level. And this can sometimes create some issues because many times they will include everything that the defendant has that is eligible for making it into the felony level. So they don't just include, for example, they don't include the 3 priors that got them to the felony. They might include everything. And I asked a prosecutor about this once, why do they do this? And that's so that if arguments are made against the priors being used to enhance, if they were to successfully remove, if the defense was successful in removing all of the priors that were listed, they would have to start over. So to avoid having to start over, they will include everything, which makes it very difficult for probation to do a worksheet in these situations if it's completely unclear what specifically was used to enhance. And so that always has to go back to the prosecutor because, for example, with DWIs, the prosecutors have to think about, are we using quote unquote civil offenses to enhance, like driving after cancellation, or are we using criminal offenses, prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWIs? And the reason why that's an issue is because there is case law that says basically because civil type offenses do not go in criminal history, that first the criminal offenses must be exhausted for enhancing purposes before moving over to the civil priors. And so that's State v. Zimet, Z-I-E-M-E-N-T, I think. Anyway, State v. Zimet, that's been around a long time, since the very early of when this offense, became a felony. DWI did not become a felony until August 1st of 2002. So we are a significant number of years, almost 2 decades plus, away from when this became a felony. So oftentimes we really only have the 3 that got them to this level. When you see more than that in the complaint, and it's not clear which 3 of everything being listed is used specifically to enhance, reach out to the prosecutor. And when the prosecutor tells you, oh, just pick 3, please tell them that we can't do it that way. Because once an offense is used to enhance, it may or may not remove its eligibility to be used in criminal history. So with DWIs, it takes 3 priors to enhance. So when we talk about the priors being used to enhance, we are talking about the criminal offenses, the prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWIs under 169A.20. That's where it's outlined about what it takes to make a DWI an offense. Any offense used to enhance a current offense, be that a misdemeanor, a gross misdemeanor, or a felony, can be used to assign custody. Whenever we're talking about misdemeanors being used for custody, we have to always double check that they are targeted misdemeanors. In this situation, a misdemeanor DWI is a targeted misdemeanor. So custody from that misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor DWI or a felony used to enhance can also be used to assign custody, but that's where the inclusion of that prior offense may end. Because if a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor is used to enhance to a current felony, is used to enhance the current felony, there we go, it cannot also be used to assign units for that misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor that would lead to a point, because without this felony DWI, this would be misdemeanor behavior. And so adding in those misdemeanors that got him to that felony, plus any others towards making a point, the commission said, no, we're not going to do that. So while we will allow for custody, we will not allow misdemeanors or gross misdemeanor DWIs used to enhance on the worksheet. Those are removed. But felonies used to enhance are eligible to be included. So that's a policy that stands regardless of whether you have a DWI or a non-DWI, is that felonies are not going to go away. They're going to be used on the worksheet somehow. So in this situation, when we have felonies being used to enhance, we're really talking about a prior criminal vehicular operation or homicide under the drug or alcohol statutes that's being used to make this misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWI a felony. And this comes from a long time ago where there was a criminal vehicular operation, criminal vehicular homicide. And when that person got out of prison after serving their time on that CVH, they picked up a DWI. And it was, in fact, their first ever DWI, and it was a misdemeanor. So at that time, the legislature said, okay, if you have a criminal vehicular operation or homicide that came from drugs or alcohol statutes, you've basically committed a DWI with injuries, grievous or otherwise. And so that prior CVO or CVH felony can be used to enhance a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor to a felony DWI. In that situation, because it is the CVO or CVH felony being used to enhance, prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWIs under 169A.20 can also be used in criminal history. So that's the way you want to think about DWIs. If they're misdemeanors or gross misdemeanors, DWIs being used to enhance to the felony, those come off. If it's a felony CVO or CVH alcohol drug related offense that's being used to enhance, that goes on the worksheet along with any misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWIs that they have. And what that criminal vehicular operation does is not only bring them to an automatic felony level offense, it makes that DWI a subsequent DWI. So right off the bat, their first DWI can be a subsequent and a prison sentence based on the fact that they have that prior CVO or CVH. Now, if they have a prior felony DWI, and that prior felony is being used to enhance, we want to use air quotes around the to be enhanced part of it. When you have a criminal vehicular operation or homicide that elevates a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWI to a felony, you not only have a felony, you have a subsequent. But that has to be enhanced from that CVO or CVH. Once you have a felony DWI, you always have a felony DWI in perpetuity, basically. Even if it eventually is decayed from their criminal history, they will still have a subsequent DWI. But because they have that automatic prior felony DWI, the commission said the 3 priors used to enhance that first one are going to be removed permanently. So once you enhance to a felony and you always have a felony, you don't give any consideration to the prior offenses that got them to that first felony level. Now they only have that felony level offense. And that's because prior misdemeanors or gross misdemeanors not being used to enhance when the current offense is the felony DWI or any criminal vehicular operation or homicide, those prior misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors are worth 2 units each. And it only takes 2 of them in that case to make a point. Misdemeanors are usually worth 1 unit, and it takes 4 units to make a point. That's how we make the point, not the types of priors, but the number of units. So if you have 2 prior DWIs in your misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor history, and they're worth 2 units each, now you have a misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor point, which the commission did not feel was appropriate. So a new felony DWI that is enhanced off of a prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor level offense, you can use custody that may be related to that misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor prior, but you cannot use it in criminal history. So yes for custody, no for criminal history. If you have a felony DWI, that is a felony solely because they have a prior criminal vehicular operation or homicide felony under the drug and alcohol statutes. Now you have a felony DWI. You also have a subsequent felony DWI, and you can use any misdemeanors or gross misdemeanor DWIs they have because those are not being used to enhance. The CVO is, or CVH. And then once you have a felony, you always have a felony. If misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors were used to enhance their first felony, you leave those DWIs off of criminal history on the subsequent felony. So that was a lot. And I know we have some questions. I saw a question pop up in the chat. So I'm going to answer enhanced questions on DWI while we're in the DWI. Tammy, yes. No, Tammy, no, it was not. I'm sorry. Can you place this into a scenario as CVOs with enhancements, subsequents, and priors to be indicated as 2 units? Absolutely. The only time that you're ever going to assign more than 1 unit to a prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor is when the current offense is a felony DWI or a felony criminal vehicular operation or homicide under any of the statutes. When that is their current offense, any prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor criminal vehicular operation offenses, because there is that level of CVO, those are assigned 2 units each, but only when they are not used to enhance. So you have a felony DWI, they have a prior drug CVO, and 2 prior misdemeanor DWIs. In their criminal history on the new felony, which is also a subsequent, but speaking strictly to criminal history, on that new felony, they would have the point for the prior CVO, great bodily or substantially bodily harm prior, 2 units for that, and then they would have 2 units each. Wait, oh my gosh. They would have, I think I was saying their new, Wendy, can you unmute? Maybe not. I completely lost. Oh no, I completely lost my train of thought. So please, everybody, let me just pick up again. Never mind. Okay. You have a current felony DWI that is being enhanced from 3 prior misdemeanors or gross misdemeanors. Those stay off the worksheet altogether because they were used to enhance. If you have a new criminal vehicular operation or homicide offense, and they have those 3 prior misdemeanors or gross misdemeanors, those are going to be included in criminal history. And they are going to be included at 2 units each. So 3 DWIs at 2 units each is 6 units. That gives them now a point on the new criminal vehicular operation or homicide offense. Normally, DWIs, gross misdemeanor, CVOs, those are all 1 unit each under normal situations. It's only this situation that they are those 2 units. So is that, Devontae, did that make sense the way I explained it the second time? They get dinged for any prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWIs that they have when their current offense is a CVO. They get those counted at 2 units each. Most of the time when they have a felony DWI, they probably don't have any priors beyond the 3. So, because we, like I said, we're really far away. Some of the worksheets that came in when it was first a felony would have 16 prior misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor DWIs on them. Now we just see the 3. So if I've done confusing everyone, does anybody have any other questions about, can I just let you in on a little secret? That
But Linda,
one unit.
But Linda,
Oh,
but
go
then
ahead, Wendy.
sorry, but then
No.
if like let's say they had that prior DWI for like let's say a new felony CVO, not only are we going to ding them for those prior misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, DWI, CVOs, what have you, but we're also going to mark it as a subsequent, right? If it was a substantial or bodily harm or whatever the
No.
No.
A CVO can't be a subsequent. Only a
Okay.
CVO or CVH, only a felony. Thank you for helping me clarify that. Yes, only your felony is a subsequent felony. Your CVO or CVH is automatically a gross misdemeanor or with bodily harm, but once it hits substantial, then it becomes a felony.
That's what I mean. If I
yeah.
have a felony, CVO, and they had a prior felony DWI, they're going to get dinged for their misdemeanor, gross misdemeanors at 2 units each for those prior DWI or CVO or CV, criminal vehicle, whatever. And then they're going to get hit on the felony as a subsequent because they had a prior felony DWI.
No, the CVO is not a subsequent. The felony DWI would be a subsequent if there was a prior felony DWI or felony criminal vehicular operation or homicide.
Okay, so the CVO has to come first, and then if they got a felony DWI,
yes.
That's where you were losing me. Okay.
Okay, good. See, this is why we open this up for discussion, because Linda confuses herself sometimes. My pontificating gets out of hand sometimes. But I will tell you, in good news, that 2-unit policy is going away. Now, it's going away for offenses committed on or after August 1st of 2026, but it's still going away. So there is light at the end of the tunnel on this policy for future DWIs and CVOs. We would treat them like any other because we would just treat them like any other at 1 unit each. And I don't want to get too into that policy. I want to save something for August. So any other questions on DWIs?
Yeah, Linda, I have one. I guess I just want to clarify Wendy's question and just make sure that we're all on the same page. So we have a prior DWI, felony DWI, and the current offense is either a CVO or CVH felony. That would not be considered a subsequent. So that modifier would not apply. Is that what you're saying?
You're absolutely correct. If the current offense was a CVO or CVH, it is because it was. There's nothing that enhances it to that level, which means all of their criminal history is eligible, including a prior felony DWI and the 3 that were used to enhance that prior felony DWI if they're not decayed. So yeah, only the felony DWI has the enhancement.
Okay, so I'm really referring to the modifier.
The modifier, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Only felony DWI has the subsequent modifier. CVO or CVH does not have, because that is not an enhanced offense. And currently there are no laws saying once you have 1, this is what happens when you have additional ones. So
okay, so then if it's vice versa though, so if the prior was a CVO or CVH and the current offense is a felony DWI, then that modifier would be eligible.
Exactly, provided that is 100% right, provided that prior CVO or CVH was under the drug or alcohol clauses. So
Okay.
that's one thing to be really careful of, because like gross negligence, leaving the scene, things like that, those don't count. So I believe it's clauses 2 through 6 are the drug and alcohol clauses.
Now, those clauses are not listed in this particular list. I see that, like, the statute is not indicated for those CVOs or CVHs. I mean, I understand that the definition of leaving the scene, or if it's not substance related, you know, it shouldn't trigger that modifier. But does it say anywhere for those particular ones for the CVOs? Because that's what I was kind of looking for.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over here up to the Revisor of Statutes website. And we're talking about a felony DWI with a prior felony CVO or CVH. That is under subdivision 1, parent 3, and then there are the statutes. So it's the 2012 statutes, which may be about, no, that happened in 2006. So there's the change, the recodifying, and then the 2006 and then 2012. Most of them would be down here under the 2111, 2112, or 2113, depending.
That might be nice to have in and noted in the guidelines, whether to refer to the statute or have it listed in there.
I am currently working on a practitioner supplement, so I will go in and add that information in the practitioner supplement. It's too late to try to get anything into the guidelines manual, but the practitioner supplement is coming back, and that will have more specific information like this in it. So I will make sure to add that in the DWI section. Thank you, Wendy. That was a great suggestion. All right. Any other questions on DWI or enhanced DWI offenses? All right. The next one. Whoops. Oh, dear gosh. Okay. Non-DWIs. So basically, everything is the same. It's the same exact policies except for one. With a felony domestic, according to most of the statutes that I'm aware of that fit under the enhanced domestic violence related offenses, I lost my train of thought. Once you enhance a felony DWI, you always have a felony DWI, no matter if it decays or not. The same thing is not true for non-felony DWIs. And for those, we live mostly in the domestic arena. There are others, but the policies apply the same way. So thinking about domestics, the difference here is that we're only concerned with what is enhancing this offense in front of us. We don't care if the priors used to enhance the offense in front of us were used before to enhance another domestic offense. We're only looking at leaving off the ones being used to enhance this one. So misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, or felonies, adult felonies, that's very important here, can all be used to assign a custody status. But the misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors used to enhance it are left off of this offense only. They can come back. They can come back in the same sentencing hearing on a different offense that's not being enhanced. So you had a domestic assault and a terroristic threat, threats of violence. You would leave the priors used to enhance off of the domestic felony, and you would put them onto the threats of violence because that offense is not being enhanced. And they come back a year later. We have to start the process over again with Hernandez, or not Hernandizing, no, bad word, with enhancing. We have to start the process over. They may use ones that were previously used. There may be new ones. The qualified domestic violence related offense statute is so broad that there are misdemeanors up through felonies that are available to the prosecutors to use to enhance. And unlike DWIs, where we have that clear court case that says you have to use the DWIs, you have to use the criminal before you can use the civil, we don't have that here. There's nothing that says to the prosecutor, you have to use all of the lowest level offenses before you can move on. It just says 2 prior domestic violence related offenses from the statute. And so it can be, that's where it can get really confusing. And again, this will make a huge difference. If the prosecutor has listed everything in criminal history, you need to go back and talk to them. And in this situation, you really can't pick 2 either. Because again, the 2 being used to enhance are not included. Everything else is eligible to be included. And the difference here also between domestics and felony DWI is that domestics can use juvenile adjudications, but it does not say juvenile adjudications for felonies. It just says juvenile adjudications or adjudication of delinquency or a conviction are used. And so if juvenile priors are used to enhance the new adult felony, they can be listed in criminal history as long as they were felonies. Misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors never get included in juvenile history at all, so they don't here, but felonies do. And felonies are never left off the worksheet, whether they be the juvenile or an adult felony being used to enhance. So that is the one significant difference between DWI offenses and non-DWI offenses is once you enhance a DWI, you always have a DWI, you always have a felony, therefore the 3 that got you to that felony level are gone for good. Non-DWIs, also known probably more often than not as domestics, those are enhanced every single time. And so because they are enhanced every single time, we have to potentially, have different ones enhancing depending on the situation. Were they in the same family? All of those things that the prosecutors have to think about. But please don't let yourself be pushed by a prosecutor if they say just pick 2. Just say, that's not that, I can't do that. That's not following the guidelines. It's up to the enhancing authority to make that decision, and there for them to argue it with the defense attorneys about what will and what will not be left on. So that's really the difference between the 2 policies. DWIs, you do not use the 3 ever again on any future DWIs. Domestic offenses or other offenses have to be enhanced every time. Therefore, you have to leave off the prior offenses used to enhance every time until you get to a situation where they're using felonies, either juvenile felonies, juvenile adjudications for felonies, or convictions for adult felonies. So that is enhanced offenses in a nutshell. We have a question about DWI. Before I get to that one, do we have any questions about non-DWI felonies being enhanced? Oh, yes, thank you. Unless it is a domestic assault by strangulation. Domestic assault by strangulation is not an enhanced felony. That is a felony no matter what. So that was a good question. Thanks for pointing that out. But yeah, domestic assault by strangulation is not enhanced. Therefore, this enhanced policy does not apply to it. I'll jump back to another DWI question. How does it apply if the prior felony DWI has decayed? The worksheet may show a state sentence, as we will not be able to enter or use the decay offense or override the worksheet from a stay to a commit. Absolutely. You've pointed out everything that can be really troublesome about a felony DWI that has a prior decayed felony DWI. And that's why that modifier, subsequent or felony DWI with applicable prior, that modifier, when you use that, that will automatically change the disposition to a commit, and then it will just apply whatever the grid time is because there's no mandatory minimum for DWIs. So using that modifier will make it a presumptive commit, and then it just needs a comment. And the comment would just simply be prior felony DWI decayed. I don't think it has to have more than that, but you could certainly put in other information. But the comments, let's just say that the comments are there for you to tell the next person looking at the worksheet what was used to enhance. So when worksheets get sent in that have prior DWIs on them for a current felony DWI, or a current domestic assault has prior domestic related offenses on it, we don't know. And I guess the next person looking at that worksheet might very well be MSGC. We don't have all of the information that you have to create the worksheet. So we need you to use that comment section to explain to us what was being used to enhance so that we can look at the criminal history on there and say, oh, that criminal history is correct. None of those offenses were used to enhance. And unfortunately, at this time, we don't have a way for you to include those priors without having them count towards criminal history. That's certainly something that we are looking on with the electronic worksheet system. But currently, you just have to use the comment section.
So just to be clear, it doesn't matter how old that decayed prior felony DWI is. We hit that modifier and then enter a comment indicating that this is a subsequent matter due to a decayed prior felony DWI that, whatever, which will correct the worksheet how it should.
Yes, exactly. That modifier will make that disposition a commit, and then it will fill in the grid time. So yes, that modifier is your friend in any subsequent DWI situation. And I recognize that it's a slightly confusing name, but it applies to having applicable felony priors, not you have a felony DWI with 3 prior gross misdemeanors. That's not what the modifier is asking for. The modifier is only asking for prior felonies, either a DWI or that CVH. Yeah, I don't know if everybody's seen that question, but I remember that case and it was very confusing to me. And that is just the nature of the beast, though. In that situation, and Stacy, if this is different from what we told you, I apologize, we should chat. But if the court decides that the felonies are used to enhance and should be removed from the worksheet, I don't know what you would do, because
I had a similar issue, Linda, because I had a
oh,
prior
go, please talk about it.
I had a prior sex offense that was utilized in multiple counties on prior worksheets, and the attorney's office, both prosecution and the public defender, refused to assign points to a prior sex crime that was 1.5 points. And they just refused, and so the court indicated that they weren't going to use it. I had to leave it off, but I did throw them all under the bus, indicating prior felony, criminal sexual misconduct in the second degree utilized in prior counties, blah, 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 was left off at the directive of court. I just
Yeah,
threw them, that's all I could do. I couldn't add it because the court wouldn't allow it to be a part of the worksheet. You know, as long as I did my part and I put the notification in there, that's all I could do.
yeah, I agree. We defer to the court, and clearly the court has the ability to depart from the policies that first must be followed. So the idea of potentially removing eligible offenses to avoid a departure is not good practice. Not good practice. And so I think that when your hands are tied, because it is the court, that adding that information to that worksheet about what happened is the smart thing to do. Because even if it's a post-sentencing worksheet, it's going to be seen the next time somebody has to work with it, and you copy priors in and you wonder, well, where's that offense? And you go back and look at the worksheet that's where the prior is missing, quote unquote, from your list of prior offenses, and you say, oh, I see, that court said it couldn't count. And that's the thing too, that court said it didn't count. It should be on your worksheet, and your court will now have to say if it's not going to be included. So just like with out-of-state offenses, you know, it has to be every single time the person is sentenced, those things have to be addressed.
Linda?
And if they aren't, yeah.
Hi, it's Stacy. This was the case where the one I referenced in my comment, this was the case where the public defender convinced at least a couple of county attorneys, a clerk, and the judge that the worksheet that I submitted was incorrect because the felony domestic that was used to enhance was also included on the worksheet and should not have been. And as a result, the court sent in a departure report to you,
yes,
saying that my
yes.
worksheet was wrong. And then
Right, now it's coming back.
Yeah, and then I was talking about this with some of my colleagues, and apparently this is not unheard of. Attorneys are pulling this all the time, and I don't know if it's because they're ill-informed, or they forget, or they're whatever, or they're able to pull the wool over judges' eyes. But this person that I did the PSI for, they were supposed to go to prison. It was a presumptive commit. And she convinced all of these parties that the worksheet was wrong, and therefore he received a departure because I presumably goofed up. And it was not that case at all. And I included every single attorney and all of the court emails and everything as I corresponded with her about that, because it was very clear that she was incorrect. And I copied and pasted pieces of the guidelines, actually, from the workbook,
Yeah.
the guideline stuff right to her. And she wanted to argue it. And then finally you had emailed and said, no, that's incorrect. And so then I told her, well, Linda from Guidelines said, and she said, well, since Linda from Guidelines, said that
Yeah.
was the correct way, but I've never experienced that in my life. And this is an attorney that's probably been around for 20 years.
And it's not Linda from Guidelines that's saying that. It's the Guidelines that's saying that via Linda. And so that idea that we can just misuse the guidelines to avoid departing, oh, that's frustrating. I'll just use the frustration as the F word that I would rather use. It's just really, there was a case, a court case, and where everyone had misunderstood everything. So it was sent back, it was remanded back for resentencing because everyone in the court clearly misunderstood the guidelines policies. And I just thought, wouldn't it be great if at the bottom of every court case that had to do with the guidelines said, next time, just call the guidelines. They will answer the phone and help you out, because it's so frustrating to me. And I'm not going to speak for Devontae, but I imagine it's getting frustrating for him too when we hear about these situations. And it's just been radio silence from the other side. And probation is in a very awkward position because you are boots on the ground with these situations. And you're running in with this policy manual that maybe nobody even bothered to open and look at. And that is frustrating for you guys. And we feel your pain, believe me. And Devontae and I are currently working on a few ideas about how we can train on the guidelines without trying to, it's a slippery slope. Because we're not attorneys and we're not talking about anything legal. We're just talking about the guidelines. But there's all that stuff that has to happen first. And so I think Devontae and I are going to be looking at what is that something that has to happen first that we need to start training attorneys on and judges, because it's getting tough for you out there and they're getting more complicated. And
I don't think
anyway,
there's anything that you're going to be able to do, Linda, because as many times as you may offer to train attorneys and judges, they're still going to continue to do that because what they're trying to do is manipulate probation, who are doing these worksheets so that they can come to the conclusion that they want instead of following through.
I think that is a very astute observation. But I would like to believe in my heart that if I keep trying, eventually it will stick, And
Aww.
So I'm just going to keep trying, because it's not, I have dedicated my career to the guidelines, and it's not cool when it's not followed. It's just not cool. And so we're trying to do everything we can to also just make it easier for them. Thanks to Devontae, we're really, our training portion of our website is just expanding daily to include things that if they don't want to call, maybe they just want to click on something that will give them the answer. So we're trying really hard, but if people don't want to do it, they're just not going to do it. And they're adults, and everybody is, every side has a voice in that courtroom. It's just sometimes the loud voices are the ones that are not correct, or the ones that are not correct are the loudest voices. So, I'm sorry. Somebody just put up there, and you all can see that, that we should have a chat feature. And I kind of feel like that would be fine, except I feel like that might be all we did all day, as opposed to the emails and the phone calls. At least we have some, we have some control if we need to take a beat before we answer the phone or take a beat before we answer an email. But I feel like that live chat thing would just be like, so stressful. But you never know. Devontae, I like that idea. Maybe we should write that down and see what can happen.
Yeah, well, I think the email works the same way. Like you were saying with the chat feature, we would need somebody on there 24/7. And then like we're on other meetings. So essentially for the chat
Yeah,
feature, it would be for us to respond right away, but we wouldn't be able to all the time. So I mean, the
exactly.
email is probably the best that works. You can email us and then we have time to actually email you back, even if we're doing something, so that you're not
Right,
waiting in the chat or in the channel waiting for us to respond back, and then we don't respond until like an hour
right.
or half an hour later.
Oh, that happened just the other day, didn't it, Devontae? We had a staff meeting that went almost two
Yeah,
hours. And
yeah.
we
So
come
like
back and
meetings,
there's
yeah.
800 worksheets and 57 questions that we want to address. I'm exaggerating, of course, but we want to address them in a timely manner for you guys. So
Yeah, so
I
don't
don't know.
hesitate to give us. I mean, if you don't want to
Yeah,
talk to us, that's fine. Go ahead and email us. Feel free to email us, and then we'll get back to you as soon as possible with the answer, or we'll just follow up with another question if we need some more information.
it's a new era at the sentencing guidelines because Devontae's here and there are two of us now. And so it's I'm so happy to I just want to call it out. I'm so happy to have Devontae here and
Linda,
he stop.
Linda's just gassing me up at this point. Linda's just gassing me up. My head is
Anyway,
just expanding right now. But no, I
are there
appreciate you
any
too, Linda. But yeah,
oh, thank you.
yeah. Yeah. Is there any other questions? No. All
All
right
right.
then. So go ahead, Linda.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. I was going to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Watch stuff should be going up on our website soon. We've got all the lunch and learns scheduled already for the 2026 guidelines year, and there are going to be like 3 of them in August that you can take advantage of. And then we'll go back to disseminating information on each of the policies individually with all of this new stuff that's happening. And it's going to be like it was in 2019, if you were here, where we had before and after 2019 for calculating criminal history until that Robinette case happened. So now we're again going to have a pre and post August 1 of 2026 on how to do criminal history. So we're going to be even more present online with webinars to help you get through it. But if anybody, if there are no further questions, I want to say goodbye and thank you so much. And we'll see you in August.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And we'll have that schedule sent out to you in July for 2026 and 2027 training. And then also I'll have this training uploaded on our website by next week, early next week. But thank you everyone for your questions and attending today. Thank you, Linda. You're the best as always. And everyone have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week and have a good weekend.
Enjoy the long weekend, everybody, and the warm weather. Take care.